Kolrosing is an old Scandinavian technique used to engrave wooden objects. Kolrosing has been around since Viking times. Over time, of course, the technique has significantly developed. Traditionally, Kolrosing is done by separating wood fibers and impregnating a pigment within the wood, and sealing said pigment with burnishing. Or in other words, compressing the wood surface to attempt to close the previously made cuts, sealing the pigment inside. I will now grind down already pre-ground coffee with a hand crank coffee grinder. A mortar and pestle would work just as well. Traditionally speaking, coffee was probably not used, more likely ground charcoal or tree bark. Either way, I go with coffee because I love how it smells. I like to make sure that the tip of my knife is very sharp. The knife is handmade and the blade is made from an old saw blade. The handle is made from cherry wood. I just kind of made it out of the blue. Couldn't work with the knives that I was working with, specifically for Kolrosing. So I made this that has a double bevel on both sides to come to the most fine point. I like to sketch whatever it is I plan on engraving. This helps reduce any chance of mistakes in the final product and helps me understand how the engraving is actually going to go. I like to then redraw the sketch on the target piece itself, allowing me to adjust the design accordingly for any imperfections in the wood. Once everything's ready, I start engraving the piece. For me, cutting in one direction is the safest and best way to go, but however the cut needs to be made, make sure that your piece is stable and both hands are on the handle of the knife. perfection is not my goal. It's more about consistency, caution, and when needed, compromise. When making your cuts, just try to stay consistent. Consistent cuts and being consistent overall helps make every other step less worrisome. Being cautious through and through will help overall awareness of possible mistakes and safety concerns, and in the end help just keep everything in order. And compromise, especially when you do make a mistake, because it's easy to make a mistake, but it's easier to make a mistake worse. After engraving the piece, the next step is to apply the finish in pigment, and then I impregnate the pigment into the wood. In this video, I use beeswax and mineral oil as a wood finish. I really want to make a video on my YouTube channel showcasing exactly how you can make some of it yourself, and I'd like to sell it as a product on my website. And if you go there, 30mm.square.site, you'll find many of the carvings featured in this video, including the stool that I am finishing right here. Note that the finish that I'm using is food safe, which is totally unnecessary for this project, but be aware of what kind of finish you're using. If you're doing a spoon or something that you might want to eat with, you may want a food safe finish. Don't be afraid to really work it in. And again, I really like to use coffee because of the way it smells. So the more you work it in, the more it smells good. But more than just the way it smells, it's also really effective at removing all those pencil marks. So really scrub them off. See, what I'm doing now, I didn't really talk about this spot much. I just did a little line on the leg just for fun. I don't really have any particular reason that it is there. It doesn't stand out very much, but it's there. And there is a logo on the bottom you'll see at the end. Or I guess not a logo, my initials that I like to put on my pieces. Now here I'm going to attempt to try to get excess coffee off, especially in those nooks and crannies that are in the wood that I either put or were already in the board that became the stool top. So that's what I'm doing with the towel. Also removing excess oil to make it easier for burnishing. Here in complete contradiction, I add more oil just to make it easier to remove some of that extra coffee in those nooks and crannies. Now finally, burnishing. Well, burnishing and a whole lot of wiping down because there's a shite ton of oil. There should be. It's supposed to be very oily. If you're unfamiliar with burnishing, it's a technique where a small, smooth stone or piece of metal is used to slatten out and compress the surface of the wood. In our case, closing up those gaps that we stored pigment to improve the longevity of our design. Depending on the piece you're working on, you may want to go back after burnishing and rub in more pigment and oil. This increases the contrast of your design. This is especially good in pale woods like maple and apple, pear. Put a lot of work into everything that went into this video, so I very much appreciate you for watching. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.